Your dad's a walking disease. Nurse collapsed when she saw him reading to sick children, but when the man everyone fears turns out to be her long-lost father, a shocking fight for truth and redemption begins. Will love or prejudice win? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The gray morning pressed against the windows of St. Luke's Hospital like a wet blanket. In the children's cancer ward, fluorescent lights buzzed their endless tune, while nurses padded between beds in worn sneakers. The smell of antiseptic couldn't mask the deeper scent of fear that clung to everything, the walls, the sheets, the very air the children breathed. Nurse Patricia checked little Emma's IV drip, adjusting the flow while the 6-year-old whimpered. 2 beds over, Marcus pressed his face into his pillow, shoulders shaking. The morphine wasn't touching his bone pain today. In the corner bed, Tommy fidgeted with his game console, but his hands trembled too much to play properly. The elevator dinged down the hall. Nobody paid attention. Doctors, orderlies, and visitors came and went like ghosts in this place, but the footsteps that followed weren't the confident stride of a doctor or the hurried shuffle of worried parents. They moved with careful deliberation, each step measured. Earl Jennings appeared in the doorway like something the wind had blown in from another time. His flannel shirt, faded red and black checks, hung loose on his thin frame. The knees of his jeans had gone white with age. A cough rattled in his chest. Not the sharp bark of a cold, but something deeper, wetter. He shifted the canvas bag on his shoulder, and books rustled inside like autumn leaves. The receptionist, Donna, looked up from her computer. Her fingers paused mid-type. Earl approached her desk. "Morning, ma'am." His voice carried the roughness of tobacco and time, but underneath ran something gentler. "I was wondering if I might read to the children." Donna's eyebrows drew together. "Are you family?" "No, ma'am." "Then I'm afraid—" "Please." Tommy had crept up to the desk, dragging his IV pole. His bald head caught the harsh light. "Please let him." "We're so bored." Donna glanced at the head nurse's station, but Patricia was deep in conversation with a doctor. She looked back at Earl's weathered face, at the hope blooming in Tommy's eyes. "Just for a little while," she said. Earl nodded once, a dip of his chin that spoke of old-fashioned manners. He made his way to the play area, a splash of primary colors that looked garish under the hospital lighting. Plastic chairs surrounded a low table covered in half-finished puzzles. Earl lowered himself into one of the chairs. It creaked under his weight, and opened his canvas bag. The books inside weren't new. Their spines showed white creases, corners bent from countless readings. He selected one with a faded blue cover and cleared his throat. "This here's about a boy who thought he couldn't do anything right," Earl began. His voice rolled through the ward like distant thunder, deep and steady. Emma stopped whimpering. Marcus lifted his face from the pillow. Other children stirred, drawn by something indefinable in that gravelly voice. Sarah, the girl with no hair and tubes running into her chest, scooted her wheelchair closer. Even the teenagers, who usually kept their earbuds in, pulled them out to listen. Earl read about the boy who failed at baseball, who couldn't make friends, who felt invisible. But then the boy discovered he could talk to birds. Not magic exactly, just understanding. The birds taught him that being different wasn't the same as being wrong. Sarah clapped her hands when the boy helped a lost cardinal find its way home. Tommy laughed, actually laughed, when the boy accidentally let a whole flock of pigeons through his classroom window. The ward transformed. The gray morning outside seemed less oppressive. The fluorescent lights lost their harsh edge. Earl turned the page, his thick fingers gentle with the worn paper. A cough bubbled up from his chest. He pressed his fist to his mouth, waited for it to pass, then continued reading. "My mommy says you're a walking disease." The words exploded through the warm atmosphere like a rock through glass. Every head turned to Tommy, who stood with his hand over his mouth, eyes wide with the horror of what had escaped. The silence stretched taut. A monitor beeped. Someone's breathing machine hissed and clicked. Earl's shoulders sagged slightly, but his eyes stayed on the book. After a heartbeat, he continued reading, his voice unchanged. The boy in the story was learning that sparrows remembered kindness, that crows could hold grudges, that love came in forms you didn't expect. The door to the ward swung open. Clara Monroe entered with a patient chart clutched against her chest, her graying hair pulled back so tight it stretched the skin at her temples. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd walked these halls for decades, already scanning the room to assess which child needed attention first. Her gaze swept past the beds, past the play area, and landed on Earl. The chart slipped from her fingers. Papers scattered across the linoleum like white birds trying to fly. Her knees buckled. Patricia lunged forward, catching Clara's elbow as she swayed. "It's him." The words came out as barely more than breath. Earl looked up from the book. Their eyes met across 20 feet of hospital floor, across decades of silence. Confusion flickered across his weathered features, then something else. Recognition dawning like a terrible sunrise. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Just another cough, deeper this time, that shook his whole frame. The children watched, sensing the shift in the air but not understanding it. Sarah wheeled herself back slightly. Marcus pulled his blanket higher. Clara's fingers gripped Patricia's arm, hard enough to leave marks. Patricia guided Clara through the double doors and down the hall to the staff lounge. Clara's legs moved mechanically, each step requiring conscious effort. The lounge smelled of burnt coffee and the lemon disinfectant they used on the tables. Patricia steered her to a chair. "Sit. I'll get you something." The coffee appeared moments later, too strong, too hot. Clara wrapped both hands around the ceramic mug, needing something solid to anchor her. The trembling started in her fingers and worked its way up her arms. Patricia pulled out the opposite chair. 20 years we've worked together, and I've never seen you like this. What happened out there?" Clara stared into the black coffee. Her reflection wavered on the surface. "That man," the words scraped out, "that man is my father." Patricia's intake of breath was sharp. "But you said your father—" "Was dead, I know. That's what Mama told everyone. What she told me, eventually." Clara's laugh held no humor. "Easier than the truth." "Which is?" Clara lifted the mug, set it down without drinking. "He left when I was 6, just disappeared one morning. No note, no goodbye, nothing." The memory surfaced unbidden, waking to find Mama sitting at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's dress, staring at nothing. The way the neighbors started crossing the street when they saw them coming, how the whispers followed them through the grocery store like smoke. "There were rumors," Clara continued, "started at the farm where he worked. Someone got sick, real sick, and they blamed him, said he carried something, disease, bad blood. Nobody knew exactly what, but in a town that small, nobody needed proof." Patricia reached across the table, her dark fingers covering Clara's pale ones. "They treated us like we were contaminated. Kids wouldn't play with me. Their mothers would pull them away if I got too close. Mama tried to shield me, but children hear everything." Clara's voice dropped. "She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed, cleaned houses for the same women who wouldn't let their children near me, never complained, never cried where I could see." "How long before you knew he wasn't dead?" "Mama told me the truth when I turned 16, said I was old enough to understand that sometimes shame kills a person just as sure as any disease." Clara finally took a sip of coffee. It burned going down. "She said he thought leaving would free us, that the rumors would die if he wasn't there to feed them." "Did they?" "Eventually. After Mama moved us 2 counties over, after she changed our last name, after years of her breaking her back to prove we were respectable." The wall clock ticked. Outside, rain began patting against the window. "I need to talk to him," Clara said. Patricia squeezed her hand. "You sure?" "No, but I need to." The afternoon shift change had quieted the ward. Half the children slept, exhausted from morning treatments. The gray light through the windows had deepened to charcoal. Clara found Earl in the corner where she'd left him, shoulders hunched, reading silently to himself while children dozed around him. She approached slowly, her soft-soled shoes silent on the floor. He looked up when she stopped beside his chair. This close, she could see the deep lines around his eyes, the way his clothes hung loose on his frame, the careful mending on his shirt cuffs. "We need to talk," she said. He marked his page with a torn envelope and stood. They moved to the far corner, near the windows, where their voices wouldn't wake the children. Clara, her name on his lips sounded like a prayer he'd been holding for decades. "Don't." She crossed her arms. "Just tell me why." Earl's hand went to his mouth as another cough rattled through him. When it passed, he wiped his palm on his jeans. "You know why." "I know what Mama told me. I want to hear it from you." He looked out the window at the rain. "They said I was diseased. Said I'd contaminate everyone I touched. The foreman fired me. The landlord evicted us. People I'd known my whole life looked at me like I was something scraped off their shoe." "So you ran?" "I left." His voice stayed steady. "There's a difference. I left so you and your mama could have a chance. As long as I stayed, you'd be the diseased man's daughter. She'd be the diseased man's wife. We were anyway. But it faded, didn't it? Without me there to remind them?" Clara's fingernails dug into her palms. "Mama worked herself into an early grave because of you?" "I know. I grew up thinking I was contaminated, that something was wrong with me." "I know. Then why come back?" "Why now?" Earl gestured toward the sleeping children. "Because I understand what it's like to be marked. To have people afraid to touch you. These kids, they know that feeling. Maybe I can give them what I couldn't give you. Just a voice reading stories, just someone who's not afraid. You're 40 years too late. I know that too." Clara turned away. The fury she'd expected wasn't coming. In its place, something hollow expanded in her chest. Why come back now? She whispered it to herself more than him. She left without looking back, her steps quick and sharp. Behind her, Earl sank into his chair, coughing into his sleeve. The sound followed her down the hall. A small hand tugged at Earl's pants leg. Lucy, 5 years old with tubes in her nose, held up a piece of paper. She'd drawn him sitting in the chair, book open, surrounded by stick-figure children with enormous smiles. At the bottom, in crayon letters, "Story Man." Earl took the drawing with careful hands and held it like it might dissolve. Morning came hard to St. Luke's Hospital. Clara had barely slept, Earl's face haunting her through the dark hours. She arrived early, hoping to avoid him, but the ward buzzed with whispers before she'd even clocked in. "Did you hear about the old man? Someone said he has tuberculosis. My cousin knows someone who knew him years back, said he infected a whole farm." Clara kept her head down, checking charts, adjusting IV drips. The stories grew with each telling. By 9 o'clock, Earl had become a walking plague in the mouths of gossips. The board meeting room smelled of burnt coffee and disinfectant. 3 administrators sat across from Clara. Dr. Harrison with his thin mustache, Mrs. Blackwood from Human Resources, and James Pike from Legal. Their faces wore the practiced concern of people about to deliver bad news. "We've received multiple complaints, Doctor," Harrison began, sliding papers across the table. "Parents are concerned about the gentleman reading to children." Clara didn't touch the papers. "His name is Earl Jennings." "Yes, well." Mrs. Blackwood adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Jennings appears to have a concerning medical history." "Appears to have?" Pike leaned forward. "Several community members remember incidents from decades ago, accusations of contagious disease. We can't ignore that." "You're basing this on 40-year-old rumors?" "We're basing this on current parent concerns." Dr. Harrison's tone sharpened. 3 families have threatened to transfer their children if he returns. Clara's hands clenched under the table. Those children were happier yesterday than I've seen them in weeks. Tommy smiled for the first time since his last round of chemo. Lucy ate her whole lunch. That's not the point. Then what is? Pike cleared his throat. Liability. If he is carrying something, he's not. Can you prove that? The silence stretched. Outside, a cart rattled past. Mrs. Blackwood softened her voice. Clara, we understand you may have personal feelings about this situation. Heat rose in Clara's cheeks. What's that supposed to mean? We know he's your father. The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara stood. The children love him. The decision is final, Doctor, Harrison said. He cannot return without complete medical clearance. Blood work, chest x-rays, TB test, the works. That could take weeks. Then it takes weeks. Clara left without another word. The hallway stretched forever. Her shoes squeaked against the polished floor, each step echoing her mother's words from long ago. They'll always see us as diseased, baby. Always. The ward was quieter than usual when she returned. Earl sat in his corner, reading softly to a circle of children. Their parents stood along the walls, watching, suspicious. The tension pulled tight as wire. Then the door burst open. A woman charged in, 30-something, designer clothes, rage twisting her features. She pointed at Earl like he was something she'd found rotting in her garden. Stay away from my child. Every head turned. Earl looked up from his book, confusion clouding his eyes. You heard me. The woman's voice climbed higher. Get away from them. Ma'am, please, Patricia started forward, but the woman shoved past her. I know who you are. I know what you are. She grabbed her daughter's arm, yanking the girl from the circle. The child cried out, confused. You don't belong here. Other parents shifted, some pulling their children back, others frozen. Tommy pressed against Earl's leg, frightened. Earl stood slowly. He closed the book, placed it in his bag. His hands shook slightly. I'm sorry, he said to the room, to the children, to no one. Dr. Harrison appeared with security. They didn't touch Earl, didn't need to. He walked between them like a man heading to his execution, shoulders bent, that terrible cough rattling in his chest. Clara watched from the doorway, the rage and shame twisted together in her stomach until she couldn't tell them apart. This was her childhood playing out again, the pointing, the accusations, the way people recoiled. She remembered hiding behind her mother's skirt while neighbors whispered, remembered changing schools 3 times, remembered the day she stopped telling people her real last name. This is exactly what I remember as a girl, she whispered. Patricia touched her shoulder. You okay? Clara couldn't answer. Evening painted the hospital steps gold and orange. Earl sat on the bottom step, bag beside him, hands folded. His cough echoed off the concrete walls. From the 3rd-floor window, Clara watched him. He looked smaller from up here, older, like the world had worn him down to his bones. A few times he pulled out a book, opened it, then put it away again. Once he stood as if to leave, then sat back down. Clara's hand pressed against the glass. She should go to him. Should say something. Should do anything but stand here, frozen, but she couldn't move. The girl who'd waited at windows for her father to come home was still there, inside her, afraid to hope, afraid to forgive. Below, Earl coughed again, doubling over. When he straightened, he looked up at the hospital windows. For a moment, Clara thought he saw her. Then he picked up his bag and walked away, disappearing into the growing dark. Clara's hands trembled on the steering wheel the whole drive home. The familiar streets blurred past, the pharmacy where her mother bought cough syrup they couldn't afford, the church where people shifted away from their pew, the playground where kids chanted "Disease Girl," until she stopped going. Her apartment felt suffocating. She dropped her keys twice before managing the lock. The silence pressed against her ears. In the kitchen, she pushed pasta around her plate. Each bite tasted like cardboard. The chair across from her sat empty, same as always. But tonight she saw her mother there, thin shoulders, bent over bills, never answering when Clara asked about her father. "Where is he, Mama?" Her mother would turn away, always turn away. Sometimes Clara caught her staring at nothing, lips moving in silent conversation with ghosts. The pasta went cold. Clara dumped it in the trash. She tried watching television, reading, cleaning the already spotless counters. Nothing stuck. His face kept appearing, older now, worn down, but still carrying that same gentle way of moving through space like he didn't want to disturb anyone. By 9 o'clock she grabbed her coat. The hospital parking lot stretched dark and mostly empty. Clara circled twice before spotting the beat-up truck near the loading dock. Earl sat on a concrete barrier wrapped in a coat that had seen better decades. A security light flickered overhead, casting him in and out of shadow. She parked 3 spaces away and sat for a moment, gathering courage or anger. She wasn't sure which. His cough reached her before she got close. Deep, wet, painful. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Earl looked up. "Neither should you. This is where I work. Not at 10 o'clock. She stood 10 feet away, arms crossed. The distance felt important. "Why did you abandon us?" The question hung between them. Earl pulled his coat tighter. "That what you came to ask? Answer me." "Clara, why let everyone call us cursed? Why let Mom struggle alone? Why disappear like we meant nothing?" Each word hit him. She saw it in the way his shoulders dropped lower. "You want the truth? I've wanted it for 40 years. Earl studied his hands. Thick fingers, scarred from farm work that ended decades ago. "I was terrified." "Of what?" "Of killing you both." Clara's laugh came out bitter. "So you killed us anyway, just slower?" "I had something wrong with my lungs. Started coughing blood one winter. The doctor in Millstown, old Doc Brennan, took one look and started backing away. Said it might be tuberculosis. Might be worse." Word got out. He paused, coughing into his sleeve. "Within a week people were saying leprosy. Said I was cursed. Unclean. Men I'd worked beside for years crossed the street when they saw me coming. The grocery store asked me not to come inside anymore. That's not. Your mother tried to stand by me. But then the landlord gave us notice. The school called. Said they were concerned about you being around other children. I saw what was coming. Saw you both getting dragged down with me. So you ran. I left. There's a difference. Not to a 6-year-old girl." Earl's head dropped. No, not to her. A car passed, headlights sweeping across them. Clara stepped closer. "What was really wrong with you?" "Severe bronchitis. Found out years later from a real doctor in Chicago. Just bronchitis that scarred my lungs. But by then..." He gestured at nothing. "The damage was done. The story followed me. Small towns talked to other small towns. I'd get work for a few months, then someone would hear something, and I'd have to move on." "You could have written," called. "And said what?" "Sorry, honey. Daddy's not actually diseased, just ruined." "You think that would have helped?" "It would have been something." Her voice echoed off the concrete. Earl waited until the silence settled. "I thought leaving was the only way to protect you. Let you grow up without the shadow. Let your mother find someone better." "She never did." She waited. "I know. She died waiting." "I know that too." Clara's throat burned. "Why come back now? After all these years, why now?" Earl looked up at her. In the bad light, she could see how thin he'd gotten, how his clothes hung loose, how each breath seemed to cost him. "I'm dying." The words dropped between them like stones in water. The bronchitis, the scarring, 40 years of breathing badly, it all caught up. "Doctors give me a few months, maybe less." Clara's arms fell to her sides. "I wanted..." He stopped, started again. "I wanted to give those kids something I never gave you. Just someone to sit with them, read to them, be present. Not much, but something. You're using them to feel better about abandoning me." "No, maybe. I don't know anymore, Clara. I just know I'm tired of running, tired of being nothing to nobody. The security light flickered again. Earl coughed, longer this time, body shaking with it. Clara turned away. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Nothing. I got no right to ask for anything. She walked back to her car, tears coming now, hot and angry. Behind her, Earl sat in the cold, getting smaller. As she drove away, her headlights swept over him one last time. An old man on a concrete barrier, coughing into the dark, waiting for nothing at all. Clara woke at 4:30, sheets twisted around her legs. Her father's face wouldn't leave her mind. Those tired eyes, the way his hands shook, holding that old coat. She made coffee and watched dawn creep across her kitchen wall, but the restlessness stayed. At the hospital, the children's ward felt different, heavier. Parents clustered in the hallway, voices low but sharp. Clara caught fragments as she checked charts. Can't believe they let him near. Huh? My daughter actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Disease or not, he shouldn't. She kept her head down, moved between rooms. In bed 3, Anna sat propped against pillows, coloring book untouched. Where's the bookman? Clara's throat tightened. Anna was 8, bald from chemo, with eyes too old for her face. He had to go. Is he coming back? I don't know, sweetie. I can't sleep without his voice. He does all the characters different. Clara adjusted the IV drip, hands steady despite everything. Maybe your mom can read to you tonight. It's not the same. Number, it wasn't. The day dragged. 2 parents thanked her for getting that man removed. 3 others asked if he might come back. A father mentioned his son hadn't had nightmares since Earl's visit. Clara kept working, kept her face neutral, kept moving. By evening, she couldn't stand it anymore. Drove home the long way, past Miller's gas station on the edge of town. The old Ford sat near the dumpsters, rust-colored in the fading light. She pulled in. Earl sat in the driver's seat, door open, overhead light making shadows on his face. Books covered the passenger seat, empty cracker wrappers on the dashboard, a jar of peanut butter with a plastic spoon. This your dinner? He looked up, not surprised. Clara. Crackers and peanut butter. That's what you're living on? Had worse. She leaned against the gas pump, arms crossed. The evening felt too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Anna asked for you today. His face changed, softened. The little one with the butterfly pajamas? That's her. Said she can't sleep without your voice. Earl picked up something from beside him, paper colored with crayons. She made this yesterday before they... He handed it over. A drawing of Earl surrounded by children, all of them smiling. Anna had written Mr. Story in purple crayon across the top. There's more. He pulled out an envelope worn from handling. Inside, letters in shaky children's handwriting. Thank you for the dragon story. Please come back. You're the best reader. One just said, I love you in red marker. Clara's eyes burned. She handed them back. Doesn't change anything. The hospital won't let you back. I know. The parents don't trust you. I know that too. You need to let this go. Earl folded the letters carefully, placed them on the dashboard like they were made of gold. I can't. Why? He turned to face her fully. In the bad light, she could see how much weight he'd lost, how his breathing came shallow. Those children are the only reason I came back. Not for forgiveness, not to make things right, just to read to kids who are scared and alone. If I stop, then I have nothing. You have nothing anyway. No, I have Tuesday mornings when Tommy laughs at the funny voices. I have Anna's drawings. I have 30 minutes where those kids forget the tubes and needles and fear. That's not nothing. It's not enough to live on. It's enough to die on. The words hung there. Clara looked away, watched cars pass on the distant highway. They won't let you back inside. Then I'll read outside. In the courtyard, the parking lot, wherever they'll let me. In winter? You'll freeze. I've been cold before. She wanted to shake him, wanted to scream about 40 years of absence, about her mother dying alone, about all the father-daughter dances she never attended. Instead, she heard herself say, "Tommy's mother thinks you have leprosy." "I know. Mrs. Patterson called you a plague carrier." "I heard. Doesn't that make you angry?" Earl picked up another drawing. This one showed him as a superhero, cape and all, flying above hospital beds. "I've been called worse, been treated worse. After a while, you stop fighting what people think. You just do what you can with what you've got left." Clara turned to go, stopped. "Mom waited for you." "Every single day." "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." "No, it doesn't." She walked to her car, tears coming now, hot and unwanted. In her rearview mirror, she saw him still sitting there, interior light making him look ghostly. He held Anna's superhero drawing against his chest like armor that might protect him from the world's cruelty, or maybe just remind him why he came back. The gas station lights beckoned on as darkness fell. Earl's truck stayed parked by the dumpsters, and Clara drove home with a taste of peanut butter and regret thick in her throat. The morning came gray and cold. Clara arrived at St. Luke's to find the ward in chaos. 2 boys were fighting over crayons. A girl refused her medication. Tommy sat in his wheelchair, staring at the empty chair where Earl used to read. "Where's the story man?" he asked every nurse who passed. By noon the complaints started. Not angry ones this time. Quiet conversations in hallways. A mother mentioned her daughter hadn't smiled since Tuesday. A father said his son kept asking if they'd scared the reader away. Clara tried to focus on her rounds. Blood pressure checks, 4 changes, chart updates. But everywhere she turned, she saw gaps where Earl's presence used to be. At the nurse's station, she found them, a stack of envelopes, crooked writing across the fronts. Mr. Earl, the reader, the bookman. One just said, "Story Grandpa," in green crayon. "The volunteers helped them write these," said Janet, another nurse, "even helped the ones who can't hold pencils." Clara stared at the pile. Must have been 20 letters. What should we do with them? "I'll handle it." She tucked them into her bag, felt their weight all through her shift. That evening, she drove back to Miller's gas station. The Ford hadn't moved. Earl sat in the driver's seat, door cracked for air, hunched over something in his lap, a notebook. He was sketching rough drawings of the hospital, the children, their faces from memory. "You draw?" He looked up, closed the notebook quick. "Just remembering. These came for you." She held out the envelopes. His hands shook as he took them. "From the children? Who else would write to you?" He turned the stack over, running his fingers across the names. Katie, Marcus, Anna, Tommy, kids he'd read to for exactly 3 days before the world pushed him out again. "May I?" She nodded. He opened Anna's first. Pink paper, butterfly stickers in the corners. Someone had helped her write in careful print. "Dear Mr. Earl, when you read, my pain feels small. The dragons and princes make me forget the needles. Please come back soon. Love, Anna. P.S. I drew you another picture, but Nurse Clara has it." His eyes filled. He pressed the letter against his chest, breathing hard. "There's more." Tommy's was next. "You do the best monster voices. Nobody else makes them funny. I'm not scared when you're here." Then Katie. "My mom says you're sick too." "Maybe we can be sick together and read stories." Marcus had drawn a picture of Earl as a wizard, casting spell words from a book. Each letter broke something in him, or maybe put something back together. Clara couldn't tell which. "I should—" She surprised herself, sliding into the passenger seat. Books tumbled to the floor. The cab smelled like old coffee and loneliness. "Tell me about the years, after you left." Earl set the letters carefully on the dashboard next to Anna's drawings. "Not much to tell. 40 years is a lot of not much." He rubbed his face. His hands were marked with old scars, sun damage, a lifetime of hard work. First year, I lived in my car, this one's predecessor, parked behind churches mostly. They don't call the cops as quick. Where? Kentucky first, then Tennessee. Wherever I could find field work that didn't require paperwork. And the cough? Got worse, had to hide it. Wore bandanas, said it was allergies, but word always got out. That man's got something. Keep away from him. Don't let him near the food. He picked up his notebook, flipped through pages of sketches, faces of people she didn't know, churches, shelters, empty fields. Spent 5 years in Arkansas, chicken farms. Nobody asks questions if you can work. But one bad winter, the cough got so bad I collapsed. Hospital said it was chronic bronchitis, scarred lungs from untreated infections. Nothing contagious. Didn't matter. Story was already written. I was the diseased man. You could have come home. To what? Your mother thinking I'd infect you? The whole town already convinced I was walking plague? Clara remembered her mother's face whenever someone mentioned Earl, the shame, the relief he was gone. She told people you died. Probably easier. For who? He didn't answer. Outside, the gas station owner was locking up, giving them suspicious looks. These kids, Earl touched the letters, they don't know about any of that. They just know I read stories, make voices, show up. That's all? That's everything. Do you know what it's like to be seen as human again, even for an hour? Clara looked at the dashboard. Anna's superhero drawing, Tommy's letter, Katie's butterfly stickers, all of it surrounding Earl like a paper fortress. They see you as more than I ever could. The words came out before she could stop them. Earl turned to her, something hopeful flickering in his tired eyes, but he said nothing. Just picked up Anna's letter again, reading it like it might disappear if he looked away. The truck grew cold. Clara pulled her jacket tighter, but didn't leave. Not yet. For the first time in 40 years, she sat beside her father in silence that wasn't quite comfortable but wasn't quite war either. The next morning, Clara watched 8-year-old Anna stare at the empty corner where Earl used to sit. The girl clutched her stuffed rabbit, tubes running from her arm to the Ive pole. Is the story man coming back? I don't know, sweetie. Anna's face crumpled. Down the hall, Tommy threw his coloring book across the room. Marcus refused his medication. The ward felt heavier, like all the air had been sucked out. Dr. Harrison stopped Clara near the nurse's station. The children are regressing, I noticed. That man, Earl, whatever people say about him, he helped. Clara sorted charts, avoiding his eyes. The board was clear. The board cares about liability. I care about my patients. By lunch, 3 more children had asked for Earl. Katie wouldn't eat. Marcus hid under his blanket. The new boy, Samuel, who'd arrived yesterday, cried for his mother and wouldn't let anyone close. Clara stood at the window, looking out at the courtyard. The old oak tree spread its branches wide, yellow leaves clinging despite October wind. What if he read outside? She hadn't meant to say it aloud. Dr. Harrison looked up from his clipboard. Outside? The courtyard. Public space. Parents could watch. Nobody could claim he's endangering anyone inside the hospital. The board. The board said he couldn't enter the building. Harrison rubbed his jaw. Martinez will object. Martinez objects to everything. True. He glanced toward the children's ward. Saturday morning? Weather's supposed to be good. I'll talk to him. Clara? Harrison's voice softened. People are saying he's your father. She kept her back straight. People say a lot of things. That evening, she drove to the gas station without deciding to. Earl's truck was there, parked in the same spot. He was reading by flashlight, one of the children's letters spread on his knee. She knocked on the window. He jolted, then rolled it down. Something wrong? Saturday, 10 o'clock. The courtyard behind the hospital. What? You can read to them outside, under the oak tree. His face went through several emotions, hope, fear, shame. They won't want. The children want you there. That's enough. The parents, Uh, we'll be watching. Some might leave, but some won't. He gripped the steering wheel. I don't know if I can. Having them all stare at me, judge me. You faced worse. That was different. I was nobody then. Now I'm the diseased man they threw out. Clara leaned against the truck door. You're also the man who made Anna laugh for the first time in weeks, who gave Tommy courage for his surgery, who helped Katie sleep without nightmares. That was inside, safe. This is what we have. He was quiet for a long moment. What book? You choose. Charlotte's Web. About friendship. About seeing past what others think. Saturday, 10 o'clock. She walked away before he could refuse. Saturday came gray but dry. Clara arrived early. Helped maintenance set up a single chair beneath the oak. By 9:30 she was wheeling Anna out, the girl bouncing despite her weakness. Is he really coming? He said he would. Other children followed, Tommy with his baseball cap covering his bald head, Katie pushing her own IV pole, Marcus in a wheelchair, sketching in his notebook, Samuel, the new boy, holding his mother's hand tight. Parents clustered at the edges, some with crossed arms, others curious. The outspoken mother from the ward incident stood near the door, ready to leave. 9:50, no Earl. 9:55. Anna started to cry. Then the rumble of an old truck. Earl parked at the visitor's lot, walked slow across the grass. He wore clean jeans, a pressed flannel shirt. He'd shaved. His hands shook, but he carried the book steady. He sat in the chair, didn't look at the parents, just opened the book. Chapter 1, Before Breakfast. His voice cracked on the first words. He stopped, coughed, started again. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. Anna scooted closer. Tommy leaned forward. Even Samuel stopped fidgeting. Earl's voice found its rhythm. He made Fern sound young and worried, gave the father a deep, reluctant tone. When Wilbur the pig appeared, the children giggled. 20 minutes in. Clara stood at the courtyard entrance, watching the families disperse. Earl had already packed his book, started toward his truck. Wait. He turned, surprised. Come to dinner. Clara, I don't think... Maybe. Just dinner, nothing more. He shifted the book bag on his shoulder. You're home? Unless you prefer the gas station. I don't deserve... 6 o'clock, 412 Maple Street, the blue house with the broken mailbox. She left before he could refuse again. At 5:30, Clara stood in her kitchen, staring at the roast chicken. Why had she done this? The potatoes were already in the oven, green beans waiting on the stove. Too late to cancel now. The doorbell rang at 6 exactly. Earl stood on her porch, same pressed flannel from the morning, holding a small bunch of wildflowers. Queen Anne's lace and chicory picked from the roadside. These are probably weeds. They're fine. She took them, found an old mason jar for a vase. He stepped inside carefully, like the floor might break beneath him. His eyes went to the walls, photographs everywhere. Clara in her wedding dress. Her late husband David, broad-shouldered and grinning. 2 children at various ages, a baptizo and in a christening gown. Your family. Yes. David was a good man? The best. How long? Cancer, 4 years ago. I'm sorry. He gave me 32 good years. Earl studied a photo of Clara with her grown children at Christmas. Her son had David's strong jaw, her daughter, Clara's eyes. You built a life without me. The words hung between them like an accusation and an apology both. Because you left me no choice. She turned to the stove, stirred the beans harder than necessary. They ate in near silence. Earl cut his chicken into small pieces, chewed carefully. Clara noticed how thin his wrists were, how his collar hung loose. When did you last have a proper meal? Tuesday, church soup kitchen. That's 4 days ago. I manage. She pushed the potato bowl toward him. He took another small portion. The children today, he started, then stopped. What about them? They listened. Really listened. Children do that? Not to me. Not usually. More silence. The clock above the stove ticked loud. Your cough sounds worse. He set down his fork. It comes and goes. How long have you had it? 40 years, give or take. The disease, everyone said. I never had leprosy, never had tuberculosis. Then what? He rubbed his face. May I get something from my truck? She nodded. He returned with a manila folder, yellowed with age. Inside, medical documents from clinics across 3 states. X-rays. Test results. Chronic scarring from pesticide exposure when I was young. Working the tobacco fields without protection, lungs never recovered. Clara read through the papers, date after date, test after test, all negative for contagious disease. You had these all along? Got them 15 years after I left. Finally found a doctor who'd listen. Why didn't you come back? Show people? Look at me, Clara. Would they have believed papers over their fear? She stared at the diagnosis. Occupational lung disease, chemical pneumonitis, non-contagious. The words blurred. They hated you for nothing. For rumors. For looking sick. For coughing at the wrong time. Mom died thinking you had... She couldn't finish. I know. She was so ashamed, made me swear never to tell my children about you. She protected you the only way she knew. From nothing. From lies. Clara pushed back from the table, walked to the sink. Her hands gripped the counter. All those years, all that shame, for what? Small-town ignorance? Fear makes people cruel. Stop defending them. I'm not. Just explaining. She turned on the water, started washing dishes. Earl stood, brought his plate over. Let me help. No. Clara, I need a minute. She heard him gather the papers back into the folder, heard his chair scrape as he pushed it in, his footsteps toward the door. Thank you for dinner. She didn't turn around, couldn't. The tears were coming too fast. It was good, he continued softly, being in a real home, seeing what you built. Your children looked kind. Your husband looked like he loved you right. He did. Good. The door opened. Cool air swept in. Earl? He paused. Same time next Saturday? The courtyard? If they'll have me. The children want you there. And you? She turned off the water, still facing away. I don't know what I want. Fair enough. The door closed. She watched through the window as he walked to his truck, slow and tired. He sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. She heard him whisper to himself, carried on the wind. Too late to change her mind. The truck pulled away. Clara stood in her empty kitchen, surrounded by photos of the life she'd built on the foundation of his absence, holding a folder that proved it was all built on lies. 3 days passed before Clara convinced the hospital board. She'd presented Earl's medical records, testimonies from parents whose children had smiled for the first time in weeks, even a petition Anna had started with crayon signatures. One more reading, she'd argued. Outside, what harm can it do? Saturday arrived crisp and bright. Word had spread through the pediatric ward and beyond. By 2 o'clock, the courtyard held twice as many children as before. Parents lined the walkways. Some clutched coffee cups, suspicious. Others brought lawn chairs, curious. Earl arrived in a clean blue shirt Clara had bought him. His hands shook slightly as he arranged his books on the bench, but when Anna rolled her wheelchair close, he steadied. What story today, Mr. Earl? Something special. Ever heard of a mouse who saved a lion? No. Then gather round. Children formed a semicircle, those in wheelchairs in front, others cross-legged on blankets. Parents drifted closer. Earl opened an illustrated book of Aesop's fables. His voice carried strong across the courtyard. Once a tiny mouse accidentally woke a sleeping lion. He dropped his voice to a growl. Roar, how dare you disturb the king of beasts? The children giggled. Earl squeaked in a high pitch. Please, mighty lion, spare me. One day I might save you. He swept his arms wide. A mouse save me? The lion laughed so hard he let the mouse go. Parents exchanged glances. This wasn't the frail man they'd feared. Earl added gestures, sound effects, different voices for each animal. When the mouse chewed through the hunter's ropes to free the lion, Earl pretended to gnaw, making exaggerated chomping sounds. The children erupted in laughter. "Another one!" Tommy shouted. Earl flipped pages. The tortoise and the hare. He hunched his shoulders, moving in slow motion as the tortoise, then jumped up, miming the hare's arrogant prancing. Parents found themselves chuckling. Clara stood near the oak tree, watching. For the first time, her arms hung loose at her sides instead of crossed defensively. When Anna reached out and leaned against Earl's knee, Clara actually smiled. The sun shifted lower, painting the courtyard gold. Earl had moved on to The Boy Who Cried Wolf, howling dramatically at each false alarm. The children shouted along, "Wolf! Wolf!" Now the real wolf crept closer. Earl's voice dropped to a whisper. The children leaned in. He snuck through the shadows, hungry, and his chest seized. The book tumbled from his hands. He pressed his palm against his ribs, gasping. The cough that erupted sounded like tearing paper. Once, twice, then continuous, violent, doubling him over. "Mr. Earl?" He dropped to his knees. Blood speckled his lips. Children screamed. Parents grabbed their kids, pulling them back. "Get away from him!" "Call 911. I knew this would happen. Clara sprinted forward, catching Earl just as he pitched sideways. His weight collapsed against her. She lowered him carefully to the grass, turning him on his side as the coughing continued. "Get a gurney!" She barked at a frozen nurse. "Now!" Dr. Harrison rushed from the building with 2 orderlies. They lifted Earl onto the stretcher as he struggled for air. Parents clutched their children, some crying, others angry. "This is exactly what we warned about. He's sick. He shouldn't have been near them." Clara ran alongside the gurney as they wheeled him inside. Earl's eyes found hers, wide with panic and shame. The emergency room erupted in controlled chaos. Nurses started IVs, attached monitors. Earl's oxygen levels plummeted. They fitted a mask over his face, but his chest barely rose. "Clara, you need to step back," Dr. Harrison said. "I'm staying. As a nurse or as both?" She helped steady his arm for the IV, watched the monitors, but her hand found his, squeezing when the coughing subsided into ragged breathing. An hour passed. The oxygen helped. Earl's eyes fluttered open, focused on Clara. "The children—" "They're fine." They were scared. "Shh. Rest." Dr. Harrison returned with the chest X-rays, his expression grave. He pulled Clara aside, speaking quietly. "His lungs are failing. Severe fibrosis, probably from chemical exposure decades ago. The tissue is basically scar. He's in end-stage pulmonary disease." "How long?" "Weeks. Maybe less if he has another episode like this." "Is it," the parents will ask, "completely non-contagious? It's environmental damage, not infectious. But Clara—" He paused. He shouldn't be exerting himself. These readings, the emotional stress, they're accelerating the decline. She returned to Earl's bedside. He'd heard everything, she could tell. "They won't let me back now." Earl --. "Did you see their faces? The parents? Like 40 years ago all over again." His eyes filled with tears that had nothing to do with physical pain. "Those children are the only reason I came back. The only good I've done in 40 years. His voice cracked. "Don't let them keep me from the children. They're the only reason I'm still here." Clara gripped his hand. Words wouldn't come. How could she promise something the hospital would never allow? How could she deny him the only purpose he'd found? Outside, she heard parents gathering their children, voices sharp with fear and vindication. Inside, machines beeped steadily, counting out what little time remained. Earl's fingers tightened around hers, desperate. "Please, Clara, don't let me die as the man who scared them. Let me be the one who told them stories." She squeezed back, but couldn't speak. The weight of being both nurse and daughter, protector and advocate, crushed against her chest harder than any disease ever could. Morning came harsh and unforgiving to St. Luke's Hospital. By 7 o'clock, the parking lot buzzed with angry voices. Parents clustered near the main entrance, their children kept deliberately at home. He collapsed right in front of them. "My daughter had nightmares all night." Blood on his lips. What if it's contagious? Clara arrived for her shift to find the crowd blocking the entrance. She pushed through, jaw tight, ignoring the stares that followed her. Everyone knew by now the sick old man was her father. Inside, the children's ward felt hollow. Empty beds where kids usually waited for morning rounds. The few remaining patients kept asking where their friends had gone, where Mr. Earl was. "He's resting," Clara told Anna, who clutched a new drawing she'd made for him. "When will he read again?" "Soon, sweetheart." The lie burned her throat. At 9 sharp, the board convened in the administrative conference room. Clara wasn't invited, but Dr. Harrison texted her, "You should be here." She found 12 board members seated around the polished table, faces stern. The hospital's legal counsel shuffled papers. The PR director typed frantically on her laptop. "Nurse Monroe, you weren't summoned," the board president said. "Earl Jennings is my patient, and my father." Whispers rippled through the room. "That's precisely why you shouldn't be here." Conflict of interest. "Then who speaks for him?" "This isn't about him. It's about the safety and well-being of our pediatric patients." The discussion proceeded with clinical detachment. Liability risks, insurance concerns, public relations nightmares. One member pulled up social media posts from concerned parents, threats to transfer their children to County General. "The man has end-stage lung disease," the legal counsel stated. "He collapsed dramatically in front of minors. Several parents are threatening legal action if we allow him back." "His condition isn't contagious," Clara interjected. Dr. Harrison confirmed. "Irrelevant. The perception of danger is enough. We cannot risk the hospital's reputation or create additional trauma for already vulnerable children." The vote was swift. 11-1. Earl Jennings was permanently banned from hospital grounds in any capacity. "This is wrong." Clara's voice shook. Those children were happier during his readings than they'd been in months. Anna hasn't smiled since her diagnosis until Earl, "The decision is final. You're punishing him for being sick, just like this town did 40 years ago. Nurse Monroe, you're emotionally compromised. Perhaps you should take the day off." Clara stood so fast her chair toppled backward. "Those children need him. Those children need safety and stability, not an unpredictable situation with a terminally ill stranger." "He's not a stranger to them anymore. He's Mr. Earl. He's the story man. He's—" Her voice cracked. "He's trying to do something good with the time he has left." "The decision stands. Security will be notified. If Mr. Jennings appears on hospital property, he'll be removed." Clara stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. Outside, the October air bit cold. She found Earl's truck in the far corner of the parking lot, engine off, windows cracked. He sat behind the wheel, portable oxygen tank beside him, thumbing through one of his storybooks. She yanked open the passenger door and climbed in. "They banned you." "I know." "How?" "Parents were shouting about it all morning. Sound carries." His face remained calm, almost peaceful. It infuriated her. "Aren't you angry?" "About what?" "Being unwanted?" Earl closed the book gently. "Clara, I've been banned from places all my life. Diners, churches, entire towns. I can handle it. But I can't." The words erupted before she could stop them. They hung in the air between them, sharp and surprising. Earl turned to look at her, really look at her, his eyes soft with something she couldn't name. "You can't?" She pressed her palms against her eyes. Everything felt backwards. She was supposed to be the wounded one, the abandoned child. He was supposed to be the villain seeking forgiveness. When had it shifted? Those kids need you. No, you need me to be needed. There's a difference. The truth of it stung. I watched you with them, she whispered. You were different. Alive. Like you had purpose. First time in 40 years. And they're taking it away. They're protecting their own. Can't fault them for that. I can. I do. Earl reached over, his weathered hand hovering near hers, not quite touching. Your mother would have fought for me like this. Before the rumors. Before the fear got to her, too. Don't? She was fierce, your mother. Like you. Clara pulled her hand away. She died thinking you abandoned us. I did abandon you. You were driven out. Same result. They sat in silence. The hospital loomed through the windshield, all glass and concrete and rules. I should go. Clara. His voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for trying. She climbed out without responding. That night, Clara sat alone at her dining table. The house felt too quiet. She'd heated leftover soup but couldn't eat. The chair where Earl had sat during their one dinner seemed to watch her. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through pictures from the courtyard readings. Earl surrounded by children, Anna on his knee, Tommy laughing at the voices Earl made. The last photo, taken minutes before he collapsed. Him, mid-gesture, arms spread wide, children leaning forward, even parents smiling. She set the phone down and buried her head in her hands. God, what do I do now? The question echoed in the empty room, unanswered. The morning arrived gray and reluctant, matching Clara's mood. She'd barely slept, her mind churning through memories and regrets. Dark circles shadowed her eyes as she pulled into the hospital parking lot. The pediatric ward felt heavier without Earl's presence. Children listless in their beds, the usual morning cartoons failing to hold their attention. Where's Mr. Earl? Tommy asked when Clara checked his IV. Her throat tightened. He's resting. Is he sick too? Anna's voice came small from the next bed. Like us? Something like that. Will he get better? Clara couldn't answer. She busied herself with the monitors, avoiding Anna's searching eyes. He promised to finish Charlotte's Web, another child called out. He can't break promises. By noon, 3 more children had asked. By afternoon, even the parents noticed the shift in atmosphere. The ward felt hollow, like a theater after the lights went down. Clara's shift dragged. Every quiet moment, every child's disappointed face pulled at something deep in her chest. When 5 o'clock finally came, she practically ran to her car. The gas station sat on the edge of town, fluorescent lights flickering against the darkening sky. Earl's truck hadn't moved. She could see him through the windshield, shoulders hunched, working at something with trembling hands. She knocked before opening the passenger door. The interior smelled of old books and medicine. You look terrible. Charming as always, Earl managed, though his smile barely lifted. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor. Each breath came shallow, measured. In his hands he held tape and one of Anna's drawings, a crayon picture of him surrounded by rainbow hearts. She made this for me. He carefully positioned it on the dashboard next to the others. Wanted to keep them where I could see them. The simple gesture broke something in Clara. The tears came sudden and fierce. You left me once. Earl's hand stilled. Don't you dare leave me again without fighting for what's right. Clara, no. She grabbed his hand, his skin papery and cool. They're wrong. The board, the parents who complained, all of them. You belong with those children. I don't have the strength for battles anymore. His voice came thin, defeated. Can barely make it from the truck to the station bathroom. Then I'll fight for you. The words hung between them, fierce and final. Earl's eyes filled. Why would you, after everything? Because those children need you. Because you're trying to make things right. Because... She swallowed hard. Because you're my father, and I won't let them treat you like some disease again. His hand turned in hers, fingers interlacing. First time they'd properly held hands since she was 5 years old. I don't deserve this. Stop deciding what you deserve. Let me decide for once. That night, Clara transformed her dining room into a war room. She spread out every letter the children had written, photographed each one with her phone. Tommy's shaky handwriting, Mr. Earl makes the scared go away. Anna's careful print, please come back. The stories aren't the same without you. She called Dr. Harrison first. He'd been sympathetic during the board meeting, one of the few who'd seen Earl's impact firsthand. The board won't budge on safety concerns, he said. What if we had parental support? Documented proof of improvement in the children's emotional states? It might help, but you'd need substantial backing. Next, she called the Millers. Their daughter Sophie had been one of Earl's most devoted listeners. We saw the change in Sophie, Mrs. Miller admitted. She actually looked forward to treatment days when Earl was reading. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Yes, we would. One by one, Clara worked through her mental list. The Johnsons, whose son had finally started eating again after Earl's first visit. The Nguyen's, who'd recorded their daughter laughing for the first time in months during Earl's funny voices. Even the skeptical Brennans admitted their boy had been calmer, more cooperative with treatment. By midnight, she had 15 families willing to support Earl's return. She typed each testimonial, printed them alongside the children's letters. Her phone buzzed. A text from Earl. Thank you. She knew he was still in that truck, probably looking at Anna's rainbow hearts on his dashboard. Clara pulled out one more sheet of paper and began writing her own letter. Not as a nurse, but as a daughter. To the hospital board, my name is Clara Monroe. 40 years ago, this town drove away my father based on fear and ignorance. He was labeled diseased, dangerous, unclean. That decision destroyed my family. My mother died believing she'd been abandoned. I grew up thinking I was unwanted. Now you're doing it again. She wrote until her hand cramped, until the words blurred through tears. The stack of papers grew, evidence of love, of need, of simple human kindness that transcended fear. Clara looked at the pile before her, children's drawings, parents' testimonials, her own truth laid bare. They will hear you, Dad. The words came soft in the empty room. I'll make sure of it. The fluorescent lights hummed louder than usual as Clara moved through her morning rounds. 3 days had passed since she'd started her campaign, and the weight of carrying 2 battles, her nursing duties and her father's cause, pressed heavy on her shoulders. Mrs. Monroe? Tommy's mother stood by the nurse's station, fidgeting with her purse strap. I heard what you're doing. For Earl. Clara braced herself. Another confrontation. Another parent calling her reckless. Where do I sign? The pen trembled in the woman's hand as she added her name to the petition. Number 37. He made Tommy laugh. Real laughter. Not that forced brave boy stuff. She wiped her eyes quickly. That's worth more than all your medicines combined. Not everyone felt the same. In the break room, Clara overheard 2 mothers arguing. That man collapsed right in front of our children. So what? My daughter collapses every time they stick another needle in her. At least with Earl, she was smiling first. Clara kept her head down, adding sugar to coffee she wouldn't drink. Every signature came with a story. Every refusal came with fear. Both were valid. Both tore at her. By Thursday afternoon, she had 53 names, plus 22 drawings from the children, each one addressed to Mr. Earl or the story man, or in one case, the grandpa who reads good. The board meeting was scheduled for 4 o'clock. Clara arranged her evidence in a folder, hand steady despite the churning in her stomach. She'd presented to boards before, budget reviews, staffing proposals, but never something this personal. The conference room smelled of reheated coffee and disinfectant. 5 board members sat behind a long table, faces carefully neutral. Dr. Phillips, the chief administrator, gestured for Clara to begin. Thank you for hearing me." Her voice came out stronger than expected. "I'm here about Earl Jennings. Miss Monroe, we've already discussed. You've discussed liability, risk assessments, protocol." Clara opened her folder. "Let me tell you what you haven't discussed." She held up Anna's drawing, Earl surrounded by smiling stick figures. "Anna hasn't drawn anything in 6 months. Too weak to hold a crayon most days. She made this after Earl's second visit." Next, Tommy's letter in shaky handwriting. Tommy started eating again. First full meal in 3 weeks happened while Earl was reading about Charlotte the Spider. One by one she laid out the evidence, children's improvements, parents' testimonials, statistical data she'd gathered showing decreased anxiety medication requests on days Earl had visited. "You call yourselves healers." Clara's voice grew fierce. "But this man healed in ways you never could. He gave them normalcy, joy, a reason to fight through another day of pain." Dr. Phillips shifted uncomfortably. "The liability issues are manageable. He's not contagious. You have the medical reports. The only disease he's spreading is hope." The door opened. Mrs. Miller walked in, followed by 6 other parents. Clara hadn't expected this. "We're here to speak for Earl," Mrs. Miller announced. Mr. Nguyen stepped forward. "My daughter asked me yesterday if she was going to die. You know what she said next? 'If I do, we'll miss her.' Earl read at my funeral. That man gave her peace about death. Can any of your treatments do that?" Mrs. Johnson held up her phone. "I have a video of my son laughing. First time since diagnosis. Want to guess what caused it? Earl doing voices for the 3 little pigs?" The board members exchanged glances. Legal concerns warred with human reality on their faces. "He collapsed, Doctor," Phillips said weakly, "in front of the children." "My husband collapsed at our son's birthday party from exhaustion," Mrs. Miller shot back. "Should we ban him from the hospital too?" The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Harrison spoke. "Perhaps we could arrange a compromise." Clara held her breath. "One supervised event. A special story evening, limited duration, medical staff present." He looked at his colleagues. "The children deserve a proper goodbye, if nothing else." "That's all?" Clara's heart sank. "One evening?" "It's that or nothing, Ms. Monroe." The other board members nodded slowly. Dr. Phillips sighed. "Friday evening, 7 to 8:30, the multi-purpose room, full medical supervision." His tone turned stern. "This is a one-time exception. Non-negotiable." Clara wanted to argue, to demand more, but she saw the finality in their faces. This was the best she'd get. "Thank you," she managed. Outside the conference room, the parents surrounded her. Some hugged her, others simply nodded their gratitude. Clara escaped to the parking lot, needing air, needing space to process. Earl's truck sat in its usual spot behind the gas station. She found him propped against pillows in the driver's seat, reading one of his books by streetlight. "How did it go?" "They'll give you one night. This Friday. One last time to read to the children." His face cycled through emotions, joy, sorrow, gratitude, loss. "One last time." The words came out soft, accepting. "That's all I could ever ask for. Dad, I tried to get more." "You got me everything." He reached for her, and Clara fell into the first real hug they'd shared in 40 years. He smelled of old books and cough drops. His arms were thin but warm. They trembled together in that gas station parking lot, father and daughter, finding each other in the space between too late and just enough time. Friday arrived wrapped in golden autumn light. Clara spent the morning at Earl's truck, helping him prepare. She'd bought him a blue button-down shirt from Walmart, nothing fancy but clean and pressed. His hands shook as he tried to button it. "Here!" She reached for the buttons, working them through the holes. Strange how this simple act felt more intimate than their hug. "Feel like a fraud in new clothes," Earl muttered. "You look like someone who belongs." The children's ward had transformed. Paper chains stretched across the ceiling. Balloons bobbed in corners, reds and yellows and blues, bright enough to chase away the institutional gray. A banner stretched above the doorway, letters crooked but earnest. "Welcome back, Mr. Earl." Clara pushed the wheelchair through the entrance at 7 sharp. The room exploded. "Mr. Earl, Mr. Earl." Tommy bounced in his seat, IV pole swaying dangerously. Anna clapped until her small hands turned red. Miguel, usually too cool for enthusiasm at 12, grinned wide enough to show his missing tooth. Parents lined the walls. Some stood stiff, arms crossed, still skeptical. But most wore cautious smiles, phones ready to capture whatever magic might unfold. "Hello, friends." Earl's voice came out scratchy but warm. "Missed you all something fierce." Clara wheeled him to the reading chair, a worn recliner someone had dragged from the staff lounge. She'd placed a glass of water on the side table along with a cloth handkerchief. Small preparations for what they both knew would be difficult. Earl pulled Charlotte's Web from his bag. The cover was held together with tape, pages soft from countless readings. Now, where were we? "Chapter 15? Anna shouted. "Charlotte's Web." That's right. The miracle web. He opened to the marked page. Clara settled into a folding chair beside him, close enough to catch him if needed. The next day was foggy. Everything on the farm was dripping wet. The grass looked like a magic carpet. The asparagus patch looked like a silver forest. His voice found its rhythm. The rasp added texture made him sound like an ancient storyteller sharing secrets by firelight. Children scooted closer, some sitting cross-legged on the floor, others leaning forward in wheelchairs. Even the skeptical parents softened. Mrs. Davidson, who'd complained the loudest at the board meeting, uncrossed her arms. Her daughter Lucy hadn't looked this peaceful in weeks. Earl inhabited the story. His voice rose for Templeton the rat, turned gentle for Charlotte, became young and eager for Wilbur. The children laughed at his sound effects, the goose's honking, the sheep's bleating. 20 minutes in, the cough started. Small at first, just a catch in his throat. Earl sipped water, continued reading, but the cough built, deep and wet. His shoulders shook. The book trembled in his hands. Charlotte had done her work well, he managed, then doubled over. The cough tore through him. Children pulled back, suddenly afraid. Parents tensed. Dr. Harrison stepped forward from his observation post. Clara moved without thinking. She took the book from Earl's shaking hands, knelt beside his chair, one hand on his back. "It's okay," she whispered to him. Then louder to the room, "We've got this." She found their place on the page. Her voice wasn't as deep as Earl's, couldn't do the voices the same way. But she read with something else, a daughter's determination to give her father this moment. The message had been woven. Wilbur stood in the middle of his pen, smiling. Earl's coughing eased. He leaned back, exhausted but listening. When Clara reached dialogue, he whispered the words along with her, too quiet for anyone but her to hear. She read Templeton's complaints. Earl made tiny squeaking sounds. She read Charlotte's wisdom. Earl's fingers traced web patterns in the air. They were doing it together, father and daughter, finding harmony in this children's story about friendship and sacrifice and love that transcends death. Clara turned the final page of the chapter. Nobody said a word. They just stared and stared at the web. Wilbur, who really felt terrific, stood perfectly still, trying to look his best. She closed the book gently. The room erupted. Children clapped and cheered. Parents wiped eyes, pretending it was just allergies. Tommy shouted, "Best story time ever!" Anna rushed forward, wrapping her thin arms around Earl's legs. Then they all came. A wave of small bodies surrounding the chair, gentle hugs, careful of IVs and bandages. Miguel pressed a drawing into Earl's hands, a picture of Charlotte's Web with "Terrific" written in the center. Earl looked around at the faces, children who'd claimed him, parents who'd accepted him, his daughter who'd fought for him. Tears ran freely down his weathered cheeks. He caught Clara's hand, pulled her close enough to whisper, "I never thought I'd be loved again." Clara squeezed his fingers, her own eyes burning. "You always were. I just needed to see it." More children pressed in, patting his arms, holding his hands. Lucy climbed carefully onto the arm of his chair, leaning against his shoulder. Anna refused to let go of his leg. In that moment, surrounded by love he'd thought forever lost, Earl looked younger. The years of rejection and loneliness fell away. He was just a grandfather reading to his grandchildren, held in the circle of their innocent affection. Clara kept hold of his hand as the children chattered around them, already begging for one more chapter, one more story, one more anything to make this moment last forever. The morning after the story night, Clara found Earl slumped in his truck at the gas station, barely conscious. His lips held a blue tinge. Each breath came shallow and quick, like a bird's. "That's it," she said, hauling him upright. "No more of this, Buzz." He protested weakly as she drove him to her house, but she cut him off. "You're not spending another night in that truck. Not while I'm breathing." She set up her late husband's old cot in the living room, near the window where morning light would find him. Earl stood in the doorway, overwhelmed by the simple domesticity, the floral couch, the coffee table with its careful stack of magazines, the television he'd never watch. "I don't deserve—" "Stop, just stop." She helped him to the cot, noted how little he weighed. His bones felt hollow, like a bird's. That first evening they sat in awkward silence. Clara made soup. Earl managed 3 spoonfuls. She turned on the television, but neither watched. Finally, she asked about the missing ears. "Where did you go, after you left?" Earl stared at the ceiling. "Everywhere, nowhere. Worked farms in Kansas until my cough scared them off. Washed dishes in Oklahoma. Spent 5 winters in a shelter in Memphis." Memphis! Clara remembered a postcard her mother had hidden. No message, just a picture of Graceland. Thought about writing. Started 100 letters. Never sent one. Why? What could I say? "Sorry I'm diseased. Sorry I ruined your lives. Hope you're well?" Huh? Clara pulled her chair closer. "Tell me about the worst day." Earl closed his eyes. "Christmas, 1994. Saw a family through a restaurant window. The father was teaching his daughter to fold napkins into swans. I stood outside in the snow, coughing, watching him be the father I couldn't be. Almost walked into traffic that night." "What stopped you?" "Cowardice, maybe, or hope that someday," he gestured weakly at the room, "that someday I'd find my way back." The second day, Clara called in sick to work. Earl's breathing had worsened overnight. She helped him to the bathroom, shocked at how his ribs stood out like fence posts. They spent the afternoon looking through photo albums. Clara showed him her wedding, her children's births, their graduations. "This is Marcus, my oldest. He's an engineer now. And Lily, she teaches 3rd grade." Earl touched each photo gently, as if afraid his fingers might smudge their lives. "And this," Clara turned the page, "is Emma, your great-granddaughter." The photo showed a gap-toothed 6-year-old grinning beside a sandcastle. "She looks like you," Earl whispered. "Same stubborn chin. God help her." They laughed, then Earl started coughing. It took 10 minutes to subside. That evening, Clara made his mother's pot roast recipe, the one she remembered from childhood. Earl managed one bite before tears came. "Tastes like home." "You are home." The third night, Earl couldn't lie flat anymore. Clara propped him up with every pillow she owned. His breathing came in quick gasps with long pauses between. "Should I call the children?" she asked. "From the hospital." "No, this is enough. You're enough." She pulled her chair beside the cot, held his hand. His fingers felt like paper. "I need to tell you something," Earl wheezed. "About leaving." "Dad, you don't have to. Please." She waited. "The night before I left, you had a fever. Your mother was up all night with you. I stood in the doorway watching her press cool cloths to your head. You kept saying, 'Daddy, it hurts.' and I thought, what if I gave this to you? What if my disease, whatever it was, what if I'd cursed you with it? His breath rattled. I left before dawn, convinced myself it was love, but maybe it was just fear. Clara squeezed his hand. I had scarlet fever. It passed in 3 days. Scarlet fever. Earl almost smiled. All those years, terrified I'd poisoned you, and it was just scarlet fever. The 4th night, Clara knew, his breathing had found that particular rhythm, long pause, quick gasp, longer pause. She pulled out Charlotte's Web, the hospital's copy, still marked where they'd stopped. Want me to read? Earl nodded, eyes closed. She read about Charlotte's death, about her egg sac, about Wilbur's grief and joy intertwined. Earl's breathing synced with her rhythm, peaceful now. During the chapter about Charlotte's babies flying away, Earl squeezed her hand. Clara, I'm here. You healed me more than any doctor could. She kept reading, her voice steady even as tears fell. Read about spring returning, about life continuing, about love that outlasts death. Earl's breathing slowed. The pauses grew longer. It's okay, Daddy. You can rest now. One more breath, soft as a sigh, then stillness. Clara sat holding his hand as it cooled. No monitors beeping, no nurses rushing. Just her father, finally at peace in a real home, surrounded by pictures of the family he'd thought he'd lost. She stood slowly, pulled the quilt up to his chin, her grandmother's quilt, one her mother had saved. Leaned down, kissed his forehead. His skin felt smooth, all the worry lines finally relaxed. Rest now, Daddy. The morning sun crept through the window, painting gold across his still face. He looked younger somehow, like the father from her earliest memories, before the fear took hold. Clara sat back down, still holding his hand, and whispered, "We both made it home." 3 weeks after the funeral, Clara received a call from the hospital administrator. The same woman who'd once insisted Earl posed a liability now spoke with unusual warmth. "We'd like you to attend a special dedication ceremony this Saturday. 2 o'clock. Children's ward." Clara arrived to find the hallway transformed. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling. Parents lined the walls. The children, some in wheelchairs, others clutching IV poles, buzzed with excitement. The administrator stepped forward, clearing her throat. "We're here to dedicate something special, something that should have happened sooner." She pulled away a white sheet from the wall. The Earl Jennings reading corner. Clara's knees weakened. Below the brass plaque, photographs covered the wall. Earl reading beneath the oak tree, Earl with Anna on his lap, Earl surrounded by children, all reaching for his hands. The drawings the children had made for him were framed like museum pieces, crayon portraits of him as a superhero, a wizard, a grandfather. "We were wrong," the administrator continued. "This man brought healing we couldn't measure on charts. The board voted unanimously to create this space in his honor." They'd transformed the old storage room into a library. Shelves lined the walls, filled with picture books and chapter books. Beanbags dotted the floor. And in the center sat his chair, that same creaky wooden chair he'd first sat in months ago. Dr. Harrison stepped forward holding a familiar book. "Clara, would you do us the honor of the first reading?" She took Charlotte's Web with trembling hands. The spine was broken from use, pages soft as cloth. She sat in Earl's chair. It still wobbled slightly to the left. The children gathered around her feet. Anna, thin but smiling, claimed the spot directly in front. Tommy wheeled his chair close. New faces, too, children who'd only heard stories about the book Grandpa. Clara opened to Chapter 1. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother. Her voice cracked. She stopped, breathed, started again. Found Earl's rhythm, slow, patient, giving weight to every word. The children leaned in just as they had for him. When she reached the part about Fern saving Wilbur, Anna piped up. "Mr. Earl did voices for all the animals." He did? The pig sounded squeaky. The spider sounded wise. Clara smiled, tried a tentative oink. The children giggled. She tried again, bolder this time. Their laughter filled the room, not the polite laughter given to adults trying too hard, but real joy. She read for an hour. Parents drifted in and out. Nurses paused in the doorway. Even the administrator stayed, leaning against the wall. When she closed the book, a new child, a boy with a bandaged head, whispered, "Read it again, Nurse Clara." The exact words Anna had once said to Earl. "Tomorrow," Clara promised. "I'll come back tomorrow." After the children dispersed for afternoon treatments, Clara lingered in the library. She ran her fingers along the shelves, recognizing Earl's books, the ones from his canvas bag. Each had his pencil notes in the margins. Pause here. Make dragon voice. Let them guess what happens. The head nurse found her there. "He planned this, you know." "Not the library. He never imagined that, but he left something." She handed Clara an envelope. Inside, a donation slip for $5,000, every penny Earl had saved living in his truck. "For books," his shaky handwriting read, "so they never run out of stories." Clara walked outside into the afternoon sun, carrying Earl's canvas bag, now hers. The parking lot stretched before her, same cracks in the asphalt, same faded lines, but everything felt different. She thought about the children inside, about tomorrow's reading, about the 1,000 tomorrows after that. Earl's cough no longer echoed in these halls. Instead, children's laughter would fill the space he'd left. A movement caught her eye. A man sat on the hospital steps, elderly, shabby, alone, the same spot where Earl once sat after being expelled. The man coughed into a handkerchief. Clara approached him. "Excuse me, do you have children or grandchildren in the ward?" "No, ma'am. Just hoping to help somehow. I used to read stories at the library before they—" He gestured vaguely at himself. "Before they decided he didn't belong." Clara recognized the look, the same mixture of hope and shame Earl had carried. "Can you read aloud?" "Yes, ma'am." "Pretty well, actually. Come with me." She led him to the Earl Jennings reading corner, showed him the books, the photographs, the children's drawings. "We need volunteer readers. Background check required, but if you're willing—" The man's eyes widened. "I'm willing." As Clara filled out the volunteer paperwork, she glanced at Earl's photograph on the wall. He stood surrounded by children, finally where he belonged. Outside, walking to her car, Clara looked up at the cloudless sky. The weight of the canvas bag felt right on her shoulder, not heavy, but substantial, like carrying forward something that mattered. "They'll never forget you, Dad, and neither will I." A breeze stirred the oak tree where Earl had held his first outdoor reading. New leaves unfurled, bright green against the blue. Clara smiled, opened her car door. Tomorrow she'd read again, and the next day, and the next. The story would continue. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.